Let's play a game. I'm going to show you a few movie clips, and I want you to tell me whether that particular scene qualifies as a Mexican standoff or not. Ready? Here we go.
I suppose you got a gun up there?
Yeah.
Well, what are we going to do? We can't stand here all night.
Why don't you both put your guns down and go home?
Don't be stupid.
Alright, you have your answers? Well, you might be surprised to find out that actually none of these are technically Mexican standoffs. Now wait, I can already hear you out there smashing your keyboards and yelling at your screen, but just give me a minute to explain. Before researching for this essay, I too had a vague idea of what a Mexican standoff is. I thought it was any life or death confrontation with 3 or more people. And while there are half-truths in that thought, there's nuance and certain elements that must be present in order to technically qualify as a Mexican standoff. First, let's explain what a Mexican standoff isn't. A Mexican standoff isn't a game of chicken. In chicken, it's rarely a person's life that's at stake. It's usually a person's reputation or a material good that's at stake. A Mexican standoff isn't a stalemate. A stalemate implies that both sides are out of moves, and because of that, neither side has any way of winning or losing. A Mexican standoff isn't a shootout. A shootout or a firefight contains little to no strategy or deliberation. It's pure action carnage with bullets flying everywhere. Last, and perhaps most obvious, a Mexican standoff isn't a regular standoff. Similar to a shootout, a regular standoff doesn't contain much strategy or deliberation. It's a deadlock between multiple parties where one party has the possibility of walking away alive. Because of that, a standoff basically boils down to a match of skill. Who is faster? Who has better aim? It's basically 99% of Westerns. One winner and one loser. So now that we know what it isn't, what exactly is a Mexican standoff? In simplest terms, a Mexican standoff is any confrontation where neither opponent has an advantage or a clear means of achieving victory over the other. A vast majority of Mexican standoffs in film involve guns, but these standoffs can also include swords, bombs, and basically any weapon. There are 2 possible results that can come from any Mexican standoff: de-escalation or destruction. All parties must back down and defuse the situation, or else all parties will suffer great loss. No one wants to back down, either due to pride or fear, but if no one backs down, the final outcome will be bad for everyone involved. A Mexican standoff is always a lose-lose situation, but the severity of the loss varies.
Guns.
It's either a shot to their pride or a shot to their head. Because the main factor of a Mexican standoff is that no one has advantage or a clear means of victory, a Mexican standoff can take the form of merely 2 opponents with guns in each other's faces at point-blank range.
Oh, how can it be a Mexican standoff? Everybody knows you need 3 sides for that.
Yeah, many argue that the essence of a Mexican standoff is that no one can walk away from the conflict without incurring harm.
Either they both back down or they both die. The problem with 2 opponents is that once the guns are drawn and aimed, it's almost impossible to find a peaceful resolution at that point, which is why a third party, in some form or fashion, usually intervenes to break it up or shift the balance of power. The stakes and drama go up when more people are involved in the standoff, because it becomes even more difficult to de-escalate a situation with so many egos and conflicting agendas. That's why the 3-person Mexican standoff has become so iconic. It reinforces this heightened drama in a visual way. What was once a line between 2 opponents now becomes a vicious circle. A Mexican standoff can consist of 3, 4, 5, 10, just as long as it's apparent that there can be no clear winner that walks away completely unscathed. A Mexican standoff can even technically consist of army against army, though when nations do this in real life, it's often referred to as mutual assured destruction, a military strategy in which a full-scale use of nuclear weapons by 2 or more opposing sides would cause the complete annihilation of both the attacker and defender. It's basically the theory of nuclear deterrence, which holds that the threat of using powerful weapons will prevent the enemy from using the same powerful weapons. In my opinion, the best characteristic of a Mexican standoff is the tense conversations. this isn't a quick, mindless shooting with a predetermined outcome. There's a strategy at play between the opposing characters. There's deliberation as the characters attempt to bargain, diffuse the situation, argue reason, or threaten their opponent. And these moments are heightened because the characters' weapons aren't simply holstered. They're aimed right at each other. There's the suspense that a gun could go off at any moment. And once the first bullet is fired, all hell breaks loose. Hong Kong director John Woo is credited with popularizing the Mexican standoff in film.
Whee! What a predicament!
But I don't think anyone has utilized the plot device more frequently and effectively across their career than writer-director Quentin Tarantino. Let's examine some scenes across Tarantino's filmography and see if they technically qualify as a Mexican standoff or not.
You lost your fucking mind.
This scene from Reservoir Dogs qualifies as a Mexican standoff because all parties are tied together with their guns drawn without any clear advantage. They know that once a single bullet goes off, it will trigger a chain reaction of destruction. And it's while they're all paused with their guns pointed at each other that they each try to argue their own agendas.
Larry, stop pointing that fucking gun at my dad!
Without success. This scene from Pulp Fiction also qualifies as a Mexican standoff for all the same reasons as Reservoir Dogs. In both examples, there isn't a perfect circle of destruction where everyone has a gun pointed at them, but there's still a clear chain of linked parties that would result in casualties on both sides if a single gun were to go off. As their guns are all pointed at each other and the tension builds, Jules is actually able to successfully de-escalate the situation by calmly discussing his agenda. In the end, no one comes out triumphant over the other, which still technically makes it a lose-lose situation. But both parties do walk away with their lives, which is a victory in itself. Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 exudes the same tone and style as classic American and spaghetti westerns from the past, and because of that, a majority of the fights come off more like shootouts with their complete chaos, or regular standoffs that are more about the match of skills with a clear winner and loser. Because of that, this scene with the Crazy 88 doesn't qualify as a Mexican standoff. But this scene in the hotel room between two equally skilled assassins does. Inglourious Basterds has two fantastic Mexican standoffs, and they're both within minutes of each other. The first happens when the good guys, disguised as Nazi officers, accidentally give their true identities away with a subtle tell. Quickly and quietly, guns are pointed at each other, and everyone realizes that no one will be walking away from the table with their lives. In the aftermath of the bloodshed, Willie, Bridget, and Aldo find themselves in another Mexican standoff. As Aldo explains,
You decide to shoot, we're dead. Up top, they got grenades. They drop them down here, you're dead. That's a Mexican standoff, and that was not the deal.
They each have their own agendas. Aldo and the Bastards want Bridget, and Willie wants to see his newborn child. At first, it seems like the standoff is going to have a peaceful resolution before Bridget takes matters into her own hands. These are films that Tarantino directed, but at the beginning of his career, he also liked putting Mexican standoffs into scripts he wasn't directing. Both True Romance and Natural Born Killers also have Mexican standoffs at the end of their respective films. Just from looking at Tarantino's filmography, you're able to see the different forms that Mexican standoffs are able to take. They can consist of a room full of people yelling at each other with their guns pointed in all directions, or it can simply be two people and two guns. All you technically need is a lose-lose situation where neither opponent has advantage or a clear way of winning over the other. That's what makes a Mexican standoff a Mexican standoff. This video is brought to you by NordVPN. If you connect to Wi-Fi when you're out in public, you need to be using a VPN to protect yourself, and NordVPN is by far the best out there. A VPN helps keep your information safe by allowing you to remotely connect to networks all over the world. This way, other people aren't able to see your IP address and all your private information. Right now, NordVPN is giving my viewers 75% off a 3-year plan, which comes to only $2.99 a month. All you have to do is go to nordvpn.com/theelk and you can start protecting your private information. Be sure to use my code THEELK at checkout in order to get an additional month for free. NordVPN has military-grade encryption, thousands of servers in over 60 countries, and you can run NordVPN simultaneously on up to 6 devices. Again, go to nordvpn.com/theelk where you can get 75% off a 3-year plan. Using my code TheElk at checkout will give you an additional month for free. Not only does it help keep you protected, but it's also a great way to help support Entertain the Elk and to help me make more content. Thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.